Welcome, everyone, to the Art of Pivoting Your Life. My name is Michelle Carboni, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and intuitive coach, among other things. And we've pivoted the show to being just on YouTube, which has been super fun for me because we're not settled on certain times or anything. So, if you want to be on and get a roughly 30-minute coaching session, get on my website, and under in the media you will find a link to get booked in on my schedule. And I do up to two of these weeks, so it's a lot of fun. And this is my second one this week, which is great. We had a really good conversation yesterday, and a lot of the conversations we're having are about relationships, which is my favorite thing to work with. And so today I have a guest who I'll let her say if she wants to say her name or not, because I forgot to ask her. And
That's fine.
we're,
It's
so
fine.
yeah, so Dawn, and who we've known each other for many years, just full disclosure. But yeah, so Dawn's been going through a breakup, and we're just gonna see how we can offer her guidance today, and hopefully help her handle the breakup a little bit easier. So tell me about like where you're struggling at.
Um, I think my biggest struggles, and I have been going through this for a week, so I'm a lot better this week than I was last week when we scheduled a session. Um, we were, you know, pretty codependent, I think. We always had that good morning text, that good night text. We'd send memes or gifts and stuff throughout the day. So my biggest struggle right now is dealing with triggers.
Okay, that's
Like
important.
a package came in the mail yesterday, and it was for him. I hadn't been able to give it to him yet. As you can see, I'm becoming emotional now just thinking about it.
Yes.
It's triggers. And I know that, ebbs and flows I've kind of accepted. I finally unfriended him today, and I have accepted that it's over. But everywhere I look, there's something he did for me, or something he was going to do for me, or the friendship. I thought we were friends, but you know what? I don't think when you love someone that it's really, at least not in the beginning, it's not possible to stay friends. It's just not realistic.
It is
You may
tough.
have a different opinion, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just,
I mean, it's difficult to be friends with someone, and I totally understand, that missing the friendship
it's
part.
not like he did say that, a couple times when I was leaving. I hope one day we can be friends. Yet I did, you know, send him which I know you shouldn't, but I did send him a message asking him some questions about car stuff and everything, and he did answer me then. But then if I sent something personal about us and why did he do this, I didn't hear back. I mean, he stopped responding to me, which was fine. And I said, okay, so much for that whole friend thing, and that was difficult. But I, I was just like, how does somebody just turn you off cold turkey like that?
Yeah. I mean, people do have that skill. It's not necessarily a healthy skill to
Um,
have, right? But people do have that ability to compartmentalize and to like shut off parts of themselves. It's, sort of a disassociation. And what you have to understand is like a lot of what we go through when we're going through a breakup is, I mean, it's great that you realized you were sort of codependent. So now this is something that you can be cognizant of, and like try to see that in any future relationships and work through being, healthily dependent and not in a codependent. Because when we're codependent, we're basically outsourcing our validity and our value and our worthiness to someone else.
right. Yeah,
And
you
that's not a
probably.
healthy place to be for our
I
own
was
sake.
pretty open with my trauma about him because I knew sometimes when I would say something to him, it wasn't because of something between him and I. It was something because of my past. Like I pushed him and put a little pressure on him, and he did exactly what I asked. I said, if you ever know that we're not going to be long term and we're not going to be committed in the future, break up with me while I'm still young enough to find someone new.
Right. I mean, wow.
And so he did. I didn't,
Right. And,
but,
you know,
well,
that's
I didn't expect it 12 hours later after butt rubs and kisses and hugs and I love yous. Okay.
right.
But
Well, and, you know,
he'd been thinking about it off and on for a while.
we we have those moments of reflection or when someone says something and then we go, "Oh, yeah, that is how I feel," because so many of us, especially men, are not encouraged to feel their feelings. They're not encouraged to, you know, acknowledge how they feel or even try to tap into how do I feel. And they get used to being in that like disassociated state. And then when and I totally understand like where you're at, like I like so hard. And
We're too
we
old. Right.
you're not too old. Stop that.
I would with me in 4 years from now or 5 years from now or whatever.
You're never too old.
And that's where I was, but that's where I was coming from. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
I don't
and
know.
you know, the thing is, were you looking for the same thing out of your relationship? You know, and it's important to have these conversations where we say, this is what I, you know, this is what I want. This is my goals. This is, you know,
Oh, and I told him from
yeah.
the very beginning, and
And
he
the
knew.
reason that
So
you,
that kind of pisses me off.
but also
He 17
he
months
he may
is a
have
while.
he may have been in he may have not realized how he felt. And I know it
Maybe.
sounds weird, but like honestly,
I also suspect something else, but I
oh,
don't have any proof
you
of that.
suspect
So
he met someone else?
attention elsewhere, yes, but
And then
I
great, you know, if he's so easily
that's
taken,
fine. No,
right,
no,
by
no, exactly.
right, then you don't
Well,
want
I
that
don't think
person.
no, I don't think he's in a relationship. He wants to look around and see if there's anything better for him out there because that's what happens. You
Yeah,
know, the grass is green type of thing.
sure. Some men are like that, right? But
And I think he might be.
yeah, and so he did
Because
you a
it happened
favor,
in the beginning of it happened in the beginning of our relationship and I overlooked it because he apologetic and saying he wanted to see if we could build something together and that he you know he was a better man than that. And he said he was on a dating app after we were exclusive, and he said he didn't talk to anybody, and so he activated it so he could see who was liking him, you know, so he likes that attention or whatever.
right?
And I gave him that second chance, and we did get really close after that, and we kept getting close and became dependent. I mean, I never asked him for a thing, and he showed up and did all these things. So thank you for all the service. I mean,
Right?
that's the only thing I can come up with now.
Yeah. Well, and maybe when he said, you know, I want to try and, you know, let's see what we can make work, that was his true feeling at the moment.
Maybe, or he just wanted sex.
I mean, sounds like he could have gotten sex from anywhere. You know, I mean, if you're on the apps, you're gonna find people who just want to do that. But, you know, it's like, but were you outsourcing your validity and your security to someone else?
Maybe, I don't know what that means really.
So, like, if I'm not in a relationship, what does that mean about me?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so because you know, I was divorced after a 27-year marriage and I already went through. I don't think so. I like myself enough to know that I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's just, I guess that's why I'm surprised. That's why I'm kind of surprised when the triggers get to me. And that's the issue. It's like, this is the
What are
right
the
thing, and I know that it was the best thing, and I know he did me a favor, so
right?
why am I
Well, triggers happen
so sad?
because so like what are the feelings that come up like when you're triggered? Like, you know, yeah, what's coming up? What are you feeling?
Just sad. Like, well, I can't give this to him now. not going to be here anymore, so that sucks. Yeah, I don't think it's really, that I'll miss him, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So what do you miss?
What do I miss? Probably the companionship and the fun and the canoodling, the hugging, the rubbing,
The physical
the sex,
affection.
the sex. Um, uh, you know, I just missed the things we would. I don't know, the affection.
Yeah. Is it possible that you can give yourself some of those things?
Can't rub my own ass.
Sure you can.
um, um,
But not,
yeah,
we can we give ourselves some
I
of
can
those
tell.
things?
Um, um, I don't know.
Like, can you have fun?
Well, yeah, of course.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's only been a week since you broke up, right?
Right.
So I think the
Right.
what you have to also recognize is that you get triggered because you're still grieving. And even
Yeah.
though something, I mean, gosh, I've been grieving for like 2 months. And it's like just because logically in your mind that this isn't for me, that we're going different directions, we want different things or whatever it is, doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to grieve what we thought our future was going to be with this person.
Right.
So part of it
And
is
I think
just
part of it is a little bit of a personal affront. Oh, so now you want to go do these things because you weren't madly in love with me. Well, what the fuck? And I don't know.
so when he said that, what did that mean about you?
That he wasn't into me.
And anything else?
I felt like he was a liar.
Okay.
I don't know.
Like, did you feel like it meant something about you?
Well, I mean, I know it's not valid, but
Right,
yeah, because of
but
what I
so
went through
what?
in my
What
marriage,
was your ego telling you?
what that I'm not good enough.
Okay, right? We all have that part of us that, when we're in a relationship, we want the approval from the other person. We want that validity coming in from outside of ourselves. So part of the journey, and I'm not saying this is easy, but but part of the journey can be like seeing that I'm valid without needing someone else to tell me that I'm valid. I'm worthy without someone else needing to tell me that I'm worthy.
Right. Well, it's like he made a point to tell me a couple of times that, I love the person, but I'm just not madly in love with you or anything. I'm just not mad. I
Well,
have to be
and
honest. I'm just not madly in love. And I wanted to say, well, why the fuck not? Because match, asshole.
well,
But
I
I didn't.
mean,
I just smiled at him and patted his chest and said, "Don't be a coward," because I think he's just scared.
maybe he is.
It's his pattern. He does it with all his girlfriends, and that's why I half expected it. I told him when he wanted to get back together, not back. We weren't totally forgave him like the first 1 or 2 times. I said, I just kind of feel like there's an expiration on this. I'm going to fall into your old patterns that you're gonna turn unemotionally available, because his reason for all the breakups was always the same. It just ran its course. It just ran its course. And he would, because he would behave like the perfect boyfriend,
Hmm.
and then he would just wake up one day, just done. no catalyst, nothing like
Yeah.
that. Just
Suddenly, and there are things our subconscious does. So don't think that he consciously knew what he was doing, because I don't think he does. I don't think he's self-aware enough to. But we
one of
sometimes have
my
these programs
birthday
that,
posts.
sorry.
I read my happy birthday. I read my happy birthday post from him before when I was unfriending him, and it
Yeah.
said, "Many more celebrate, more to come," or whatever, alluding to that we had lots more birthdays to celebrate together.
Sure.
And I remember when he posted it, he goes, "Oh, you'll love this baby," and he showed it to me,
Hmm.
saying that because he'd come like through a breakthrough or something, or I don't know. He knew I would love it, and
Yeah.
I did. That
Sure.
made me feel secure.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, so it's kind of like if you were letting little things slip and like, oh, I can let that go, or you know what I mean? Like these little things that were happening that you were letting go. Part of that
The
has to,
flirty text, the
or
dating
whatever,
app
or,
story.
just things
Yeah,
that you maybe now would have said something about that it bothered you, or like you're not okay with this or that. But what happens is when we do that, we're sort of betraying ourselves.
right,
And I did that for a very long time. Um, so it's like part of your healing journey will be getting to a place where you don't let those things go and you choose to see the signs because you are now secure within yourself. And like, while
right,
it's nice to have that security come from outside of us, it feels good. Our ego loves it. It's not, it doesn't give us the power. And so we want to take our power and empower ourselves to be like, no, I know I am worthy. I don't give a fuck what you think. Right? Like, I know that I am worthy. I sit
right,
here in my worthiness. I exist because I'm worthy. And I don't need you to tell me that I'm worthy. Right? And I don't need you to make me feel secure because I know I'm secure within myself. And that's a trap so
right,
many of us women get into because society tells us that we're not able to be secure within ourselves and that we need a man to come rescue us on his big white horse. And we need the Disney fairy princess story. And it's a nice story, but it's not reality. And
right,
people can mask for up to 2 years, meaning someone can present themselves a certain way, can act a certain way, can make you feel certain things for up to 2 years before they finally can't do it anymore.
right.
And it
Well,
seems
fits
like
in the
that's his
timeline.
pattern, right? Is this like he
It is.
wants to be someone who can have the great relationship and the girlfriend who he just spoils and he does all this stuff for him and he's getting his validity by doing what he's doing. He's making himself
Right.
useful and he's like, "Oh, look at me. I'm a great boyfriend. I'm getting, this validity. I'm being made to feel secure, whatever it is. I'm worthy. I'm earning the
I think
love."
you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, he needs to earn the love, right? Like he has a belief. He doesn't even know it's there. But that love is, he this thing that he needs to earn by doing things. He needs to show his love in this certain way so that he's worthy of it. And then it gets exhausting and he can't do it anymore. And somewhere in his subconscious, his mind just flips the switch and goes, I can't do this anymore. And he needs
Huh.
that rush of the new relationship energy, which is very powerful stuff.
Right.
And he's chasing that. So he's probably chasing a dopamine hit of or in serotonin and all the things, because when we get in a new relationship, we're flooded with all these different hormones and it feels really freaking good. So you have to realize, and I know like logically you know this, but like take it into your feeling
Art.
part,
Yeah.
is that you know, just because he said, I'm not madly in love with you, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Just because he broke up with you doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. And I know you know that, but it's like, really take that in. There's nothing wrong with me. It just wasn't the right match, you know?
That's the
And
part too that bugs me because we were really, really good together. I mean, when we were together, you know what I mean? It felt
oh
like
yeah,
it was the right time.
I get
But I
it.
guess it always does, whatever.
And you know what sucks is so many people um don't feel safe to tell the truth. And they think that they can lie their way into being a certain way. You know, it's kind of that like they're going to walk the walk or they're going to talk the talk and, you know, so that they can walk the walk kind of a thing. But it's like they really can't, they can't escape who they really are and how they really feel. I mean, love is not logical.
Right.
And maybe his version of what he thinks love should be is actually not something attainable. You know, if he needs to be madly in love with someone, what is he really chasing? And maybe he was madly in love with you when you first met because it was that new relationship energy. It was something different and something new, and you getting all these chemicals going in your brain, and it feels really good. And oh, look, I can do all these things for her, and I'm kind of rescuing her. You know, I'm helping her out with these things. And so, you know, he's getting that hit of like feeling valid and I'm good enough, and look, I'm earning this love. And then eventually that stuff fades. I mean, that's why they say you shouldn't get married to someone unless you've been together at least 2 years, because
Yeah.
finally you're getting out of that new relationship energy and you're getting into like, okay, what's reality going to be from here on out? And sometimes it fades
Right.
sooner than that. You know, it's just, you know, it's like the longest it lasts roughly is about 2 years. So, you know, he was near, so maybe he just wasn't getting what he perceived he should be getting out of that and feeling how he should be feeling, and he was shoulding himself. And you know what? We can just give him compassion for where he's at and go,
Mhm.
okay, this is his journey. I'm not part of it anymore. And now I'm going to focus on me and what are my needs? How can I love myself? How can I show myself that I respect myself? I'm going to honor my boundaries. I'm going to think about what are my boundaries, because what
Right.
happens is when we don't enforce our boundaries, we betray ourselves. And then we keep
Right.
betraying ourselves, and then we don't trust ourselves. And then that little voice in the back of our head that's like, this isn't right. We don't listen to that little voice. And it's because our ego gets involved and our ego is involved in like
Mhm.
everything. So like your ego is getting a field day right now and telling you all kinds of stuff. So part of the triggers are it's in part it's your nervous system getting triggered, and what's happening is it's not even necessarily triggering this person, but maybe it's triggering the betrayal from your marriage.
Right. Could be.
You know, so it's like because our we have these flashbacks that aren't like a PTSD flashback, but they're like a nervous system flashback. And so something can happen that literally makes our nervous system go into a state of the same heart rate we had when something happened, that, you know, maybe makes our anxiety the same level, that, you know, really changes our physiology. So we get into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whichever we, you know, have as our go to. And then we don't even know why it's happening because it's just our nervous system got reminded of something by the package that came, and it triggered an emotion, which then took us back to maybe something even from childhood. So what you can
Huh.
do, so since we're talking about how to handle your triggers, right? What you can do is simply start with just going, okay, I'm being triggered right now. I'm going to let your body cry. Do what you got to do. You know, if you're feeling angry, scream into a pillow, hit a pillow, go into your car and yell. If you're in the house alone, yell. Like, figure out what feels good to you. And even for me, when I'm angry, I cry. So, you know, I'm a crier with most of my emotions. So like, I have literally sat in my bathtub and just spoken out what is making me mad, what's ever made me mad ever. And I'm just like, word vomit, what's making me mad? Let me just spew all of this stuff while I'm crying. And then I'm also going, okay, now I'm letting that go. And I know that I was doing the best I could in this situation at that time, even if it was yesterday. I was doing the best I could. My ego was triggered. My nervous system was out of whack. I was thrown into my 7-year-old self who's very insecure, whatever. And give myself compassion and give myself love and give myself forgiveness, because we tend to beat ourselves up as to like, oh, I should have done this. I should, you know, the should haves. I should have done that. It should have been like this. Why didn't I do that? And we get in this tornado of like judging ourselves. And we don't need to do that. Like every single moment of every day, you are doing your best. And sometimes our best is not great. Sometimes our best is 1% of our energy, and that's all we have. And we make mistakes, and we're human. And then, you know, 20 hours later, we can be in a different nervous system state and go, oh, I didn't handle that very well. You know, I made some mistakes here, but I was doing my best in that moment. You know, we can't judge a past moment by where we're at right now. So
Right.
recognizing this is my nervous system acting up, it got triggered. I've literally sat and just told myself, like, put my hands on my heart and just breathe and tell myself I'm safe, tell myself I'm secure, tell myself I'm worthy, and just over and over again breathing. And when you are breathing, if you can breathe out longer than you breathe in, that's going to slow your heart rate down, which is then going to tell your brain, I'm not in fight or flight anymore. Because that's one of the things that happens when our heart races, it's telling our brain, I'm in danger. And your brain goes, okay,
See,
I'm going in that state.
did you say out longer?
Out
longer than
longer.
in?
Yeah. So breathing out longer than you breathe in. So breathe in for 4, out for 6, or breathe in for 6, out for 8, or, you know, whatever feels good.
Okay.
And you'll notice, okay, my heart rate is getting slower. And focusing on your breath can be really beneficial too. But also allowing yourself to cry when you need to cry, you know. And I get it's not always convenient when those needs to cry come up. So what I've literally done to myself is I've said, okay, no, we want to cry right now, but this isn't a good time. So I promise you I'm going to cry later. And I make that promise to myself. I literally have a playlist called Sing
Like,
and
I will
Cry.
be going to Costco with my kids. I will be going to Costco with my kids in a little while, and I don't want to break it down in Costco because I have to get my own account now because I was on his.
Right.
But I'm gonna go and get my own account and put my kids on it so that they can use it. And
And like in that situation, if it was me, what I'm going to do is not tell the story of why I need to get my own account.
no, no.
Right. I'm just going to keep it
Okay.
short and simple.
I'll avoid that.
Yeah, because that'll get you into,
I'm
right.
just gonna
And just
I'm gonna say,
keep
do you have military
breathing.
discount? I need a new card.
Yeah. And just keep breathing. You know, just keep like remember who you are. Remember you are this beautiful divine being and you have all the power, and like stand in that power. Like try to stand in that power right now. Like be like, I am a badass goddess. Just sit in
I
that.
am a badass.
Exactly. I'm a badass goddess. He was lucky to get to be with me for a year and a half, and now
Yeah,
I get to move on to someone who appreciates me.
Okay.
even if that person's myself. Right? Like we don't need that outside
Yeah.
person to appreciate us. I'm going to appreciate, you know what? I
No, we
appreciate
don't.
myself. I'm
I have friends for that anyway.
well,
I've
and
got
I'm
my
a good
bestie.
friend, right? Like
Yeah.
my friends and I go do fun
I
stuff.
got you. Yeah.
So like,
I've got Karen and I've got Michelle, and I'm headed to Estes Park this week. We'll have a
awesome.
good time.
Yeah. And just remember that, remember who you really are, which is a badass goddess. And step into that
Mhm.
power when you feel those tears coming in a situation where it's not great to cry.
Right.
Just remind, and this is why people get tattoos of stuff, is because they need those physical, like, the semicolon tattoo for the pause for
Yeah.
depression, right? Like, that's why they get them tattooed, especially on their wrist, because they can look down and it reminds them, okay, I can pause, right? So, like, reminding
Mm.
yourself, figuring out, like, even a symbol, you could just view yourself, have a vision of yourself as a beautiful goddess. Do a photo shoot in Estes Park with your
Oh,
friends.
we'll take lots of photos. I always do.
Yeah, but like take a beautiful dress that makes you feel
Yeah.
like a goddess and like get some pictures
No.
of yourself standing in that power. All of you, right? Like all of you get into that power of this amazing, beautiful, badass goddess that you are. And all of you together can have this amazing, like, I don't know if you've ever done that kind of thing, but it can be so healing to have a photo shoot like that and like really standing in your power. And then you have that photo as a reminder of who the
I've
fuck
done
I
boudoir
am.
photo shoots. I did post divorce last year for that, and so I did go to his house and that he didn't need to keep.
Yeah, right.
So,
But having that done and having it at a time when you're not with anyone,
yep.
can be
Oh,
healing.
and I wasn't. It had been scheduled way before I met him. It was just for me.
Yeah,
So
which is perfect. But yeah, like working with your trigger, and the biggest part is just acknowledging what's happening. Okay, my nervous system has gotten triggered. Remind yourself who
I
you
like
are.
what you I like what you had to say about the nervous system, or to remind myself that it's just it's responding to
Yeah,
things
it's just
from the past.
it's just my nervous system. This is just part of the bodies that we are living in right now, and there's nothing really wrong. And eventually it gets easier. But knowing that you're going to have to take time to grieve, you're going to cry, you're going to go through all the things. And what's interesting about grief, and you probably know this from your marriage, but it's like be doing really well and then
Mhm.
something happens and you go down again. And so giving yourself
Well, yeah, I
grace.
was doing really well when the package came. I was like, I tried to move myself into acceptance. Because you cannot love someone into loving you back. It's just not possible. You have to, and I know that. I mean, I know all the things intellectually. I know all the things.
Exactly. It's just our bodies don't.
So,
Our
and so I
bodies
was doing
don't.
pretty good. Yeah, and yeah, helpful because I didn't think of it that way. Our bodies don't always know what our mind knows, so that's helpful.
Oh,
And
that's a
yeah,
huge thing, right? Like our minds, and you can't heal the mind with the mind. So it's like we have to get into our bodies a little bit more, and we have to tap into who we really are and tap into that goddess divine self. And 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 the forgiveness work is really important. So if you need any, like, there's one book that I would recommend called Radical Self-Forgiveness, by Colin Tipping, and he also has a
I'll
book
look
called
into
Radical
that.
Forgiveness. I'm sorry,
Okay, I was
but
just repeating the name so I remember it.
yeah, and well, this is recorded, so you can always watch it. But
Right.
that book is a great resource. It's a great process because it kind of is. It's explaining a different way to look at forgiveness and has a process to help you through the forgiveness work. And I think I know people will argue with me about this and I don't care. But I think forgiveness is really, really important. And I think we need to forgive other people and we need to forgive ourselves for ourselves, not for them. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean they have to be in your life. It doesn't mean they even have to
Right.
know that you have forgiven them. But what it does is
I
release
mean, is there
you
is there
from
any is
holding
there
on.
really anything that he needs to be forgiven for? I mean, I don't think he really did anything wrong. I don't
And that's
know.
the thing. Sometimes there is not there, no one does anything wrong really in a relationship. It's
Yeah.
just how our egos are coming in. It's how
Right.
our traumas from our past and made it, like even with your ex-husband, like the things that he was doing
Oh no, he
were
did. He did shit wrong.
but when you get
I'm
into the
sorry. He did shit
forgiveness
wrong.
work, but when you get into the forgiveness work, you can see from a different
Yeah.
place, which is a
Yeah.
place
I might
of
not have forgiven the ex. Maybe that's part of
it can be, right? It can, and
yeah.
because holding on to resentment and anger and even and making other people wrong, because what happens is everyone's a mirror for us, for something in us.
Hmm.
And when we make someone else wrong, we're also making ourselves wrong. It's like that thing where they say, when you point a finger at someone, you got three fingers pointing back at you.
Right.
And so it's like that energy between you, there's this judgment energy. And so that's where
Right.
and this is so difficult for people to take in. So, like, don't feel like if you can't take this in right now that there's something wrong with you, because there is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong because what
Okay.
we are humans, we're spiritual beings, really having human experience, and we have an ego, and the ego wants to make everything right and wrong. It wants us to be right and them to be wrong, or it wants us to be wrong. It wants to make us wrong, and we're bad and whatever. But really, we're just this compilation of our life before, traumas that happened to us, beliefs that were instilled in us. We're escaping feelings, like with what your husband did. He was chasing something because of whatever was going
Mhm.
on with him, and it had nothing to do with you.
Right.
You did nothing wrong. And in a way, he did nothing wrong except for following where his ego told him to go to get relief from whatever feeling he was
Right.
escaping from, right? And so when you can pull yourself out of it, pull your ego out, and pull your judgments out, you can just see things like it is what it is. And I don't have to make it wrong. Does it mean I'm going to continue in this relationship? No, but I can choose differently, and I can see it differently in a way that
Right.
is better for me.
Right.
Because part of it is probably, there may be some subconscious things going on, but you know, so many of us blame ourselves for things that other people do. And then we're like in that judgment space to ourselves. And then we think, oh, I should have done this, or I'm not good enough for that, or whatever. So this is the way to
Right.
pull yourself out of that, is getting out of judgment and getting out of that place
Right.
of having to make things right or
I think
wrong.
I think the next thing for me is going to be learning to trust my own judgment.
Yes, that's a huge thing. I work with a lot
Because
of
I'm
my
like, oh
clients.
boy, I didn't get that correctly. What?
I work with a lot of my clients on self-trust and in
Yeah.
hypnotherapy, because I'm working with women who have been in traumatic relationships and who have, you know, allowed their boundaries to get crossed and not held their own boundaries, and then that's how we lose self-trust, is by not respecting our own boundaries and knowing how,
Right.
and we're not taught that. We're not given an instruction book on how to have boundaries and how to make things better for ourselves, and how to help ourselves trust ourselves and trust our intuition. So it's a muscle that you have to build. So starting with that is like knowing what my boundaries even are. What am I willing to allow and what am I not willing to allow? And what do I really want? And then
Right.
we're sticking to it. That's the next part. And the
Yeah.
more you stick to those things, the
Yeah.
more that you demand respect, the more that if someone says something that you're like, no, the more you don't let those things in, the more you're building self-trust.
Right.
So it's just a process. But the biggest thing that I tell people is please, please, please give yourself grace, give yourself compassion, give yourself love, because you're worthy of it.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Any other questions before we pop off?
No, I think. And
you're going to have a great time at Costco, and it's going to go amazingly well. And then later on, maybe you'll
Yes.
cry some more, and that's okay too.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you so much for being on, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.